Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Visit Tuscaloosa.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome into the latest edition of Tider Insider Television, presented by Visit Tuscaloosa. Go to visittuscaloosa.com. I'm Gary Harris. Everybody see Rodney Orr? You're not under the desk. This is a rarity. Rodney is at a speaking engagement tonight. Very rarely has this happened. Usually, even when he's not available physically in the studio right next to me, we're able to have him on the phone. But tonight, as I said, he's at a speaking engagement tonight, so he will not be with us. But as we say in the television business, the show must go on. So you're stuck with Gary Harris solo tonight for 30 minutes. But we got a lot of great information. Reed, McKenzie, Alex, they've all been working really hard to get this show together for you tonight so that we can overcome Rodney not being here. All right, we got a lot to talk about. As I said, we're going to start it off with Bama football recruiting. The first commit for the class of 2028 is in. Alabama received that commitment last week. No surprise here with the way this staff recruits quarterbacks that it is a QB. Charles Scott Jr. out of Richmond, Virginia, announced his Alabama commitment last week, choosing the Crimson Tide over offers from Georgia, Florida State, Mississippi State, Virginia Tech, Colorado, and others. Now, this guy is big. And I've heard some people compare him to former LSU quarterback Rohan Davey. He's 6'5", 235 pounds, and he can sling it now. 3,594 yards and 41 touchdowns with just 4 interceptions, and that was his sophomore statistics. Of course, he's a rising junior. He plays for his father there in Richmond, and big guy, big arm. Now, right now, he's only rated a 3-star, but with this type of size and arm strength, don't be surprised if that rating goes up. He's ranked as the 33rd best quarterback in the 2028 class, according to 24/7 Sports, and the 10th best player in the state of Virginia. So let me bring you up to speed. Alabama has 4 scholarship quarterbacks on campus. They have 2 committed for 2027, and now 1 committed for 2028. So it looks like they're going to be in good shape for quarterbacks, both for now and in the future under Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb. All right, speaking of recruiting, now this is going to be a heavy time coming up for official visits at the end of the month into mid-June. That 3-week period is going to have a lot of officials coming into Tuscaloosa. Among those are going to be some of the top defensive linemen in the country, including Donovan Moore, a current Auburn commit. He's one to watch. All this information is from Rodney Orr at TiderInsider.com. The Bessemer City defensive lineman is becoming a priority for the Tide staff. As I said, committed to Auburn, but he could be on flip watch. Also, you've got the top wide receiver in the country due in out of Indianapolis, Monshon Sales, Texas cornerback John Meredith, and Las Vegas corner Hayden Stepp are all highly rated as well. Sales, as I said, is a 5-star. He's the #1 recruit in the country. Others to keep an eye on include wide receiver Cam Wade, tight end Colt Lampuris, who's an Alabama commit, tight end Malik Howard, running back Nigel Newkirk, linebacker Prince Goldsby, defensive lineman Mitchell Turner, defensive lineman Avery and A.J. Polly, who's an Alabama commit. We mentioned Donovan Moore. Antoine Jackson, an edge, Fred Ard's an edge, and those corners, John Meredith, Hayden Stepp, and Darius Wright. Meredith and Stepp, 5-stars. So June 5th, that's the first weekend, June 5th. The future could be in town with Bama 5-star quarterback commit Elijah Haven out of Baton Rouge. He's also helping to recruit, as is 4-star quarterback Trent Seaborn out of Thompson High School. Both those guys committed, both those guys doing a lot of recruiting for Alabama. So June the 5th, Haven is the headliner, but you've got running back Trey Martin, running back Tyson Robinson, athlete 4-star Chris Harris, a Missouri commit, among those coming in. And then June 12th and 14th, Seaborn, as I mentioned, he'll be in on his visit. He is going to help recruit guys like 4-star receiver Deshaun Hall out of Prattville, who's Alabama's after. And you've got the running back Ty Phillips coming in, wide receiver Hall, as we mentioned, wide receiver DJ Huggins, wide receiver Nama J. Thompson. And then on June 19th through the 21st, as they wrap up the official visits, that weekend will feature players from across the country, including Texas Tech 4-star receiver commit Benny Easter out of Humboldt, Texas. Among other big-name targets visiting are Georgia 5-star edge KJ Green and Mississippi 4-star offensive lineman Antonio Berry. So it is going to be a very busy few weeks beginning at the end of this month. Alabama football recruiting, we know that the the standard was set by Nick Saban, that Alabama, as long as Nick Saban was the head coach, they were going to be in the top 1 or 2 or 3 in the country. That is continuing with Kalen DeBoer and his staff as Alabama continues to recruit at a very high level. Now, they may not sign as many players in this class as we're accustomed to seeing. Word is that they might not sign but 18 to 20 players, but it looks like it's going to be high on talent, even if it is down in regards to numbers. All right, let's get to coach talk. Alabama head football coach Kalen DeBoer was out at the Regions Tradition Pro-Am at Greystone Golf and Country Club in Birmingham last week, playing golf, as a lot of coaches were. And he had his media availability, and he was asked about recruiting, specifically about how the Tide is going about recruiting the quarterback position so well. Since he's gotten into Tuscaloosa, it's been one highly rated quarterback commit after another.
You know, our success with the quarterback position, and you know, the receivers have been kind of like that over the years too. And so, you know, the guys know they got to come in and compete. You just mentioned that there's a lot of depth to the room, and times change very quickly, so we got to be prepared for that as a staff. But I really like the makeup of the players that are here. You can see how they compete and give everything they have, but guys like Keelan and Austin, and even last year with Ty, just the way that they interact, it's a credit to them and their character, and also our coaching staff on how they can mesh that room.
All right, let's talk about the quarterbacks and the standard that is being set. It was already obviously a great quarterback standard at Alabama with Nick Saban, but since DeBoer's gotten here, he had 1 year with Jalen Milroe, who was a carryover quarterback from the Saban staff, and he went last year in the 3rd round of the Seattle Seahawks, the Super Bowl champions. Then he had 1 year as a starter with Ty Simpson, 2 years total in the system. And Ty Simpson, not only in 1 year as a starter, only 15 starts to his credit, gets drafted, but gets drafted number 13 overall in the 1st round by the Los Angeles Rams. So what does that tell you? Well, it tells you these guys know how to coach quarterbacks, and that really recruits itself. Quarterbacks want to come play in this system. So you've got Austin Mack and you got Keelan Russell. You see them right there, number 10 Mack, number 12 Russell. They're going to compete for the starting job. You've got 2 highly talented freshmen that are in this class that are on campus right now that are getting set for the future. Then, as we mentioned, you've got 2 commits for 2027 and 1 commit already for 2028. That's a total of 7 quarterbacks. 4 on the roster, 2 committed in 2027, 1 in 2028. Now, it's very unlikely that all these quarterbacks will remain at Alabama. It's unlikely that they'll have the same 4 that are here this year, next year. That's the reality of the world that we live in. But what is very likely is that Alabama is going to recruit very highly and do very well at the quarterback position in terms of recruiting and in terms of development. I'm looking forward to this quarterback competition in the fall, continuing from the spring, and excited about whichever quarterback wins the job, whether it's Mack or whether it's Russell. Both these guys are uber talented, and whoever wins the job should have a chance to have a terrific season and keep this quarterback tradition rolling at the University of Alabama. So quarterback looks like it's stacked for the current, the present, if you will, and the future at the University of Alabama. Well, still to come on Tider Insider Television, Bama baseball picked up a massive series sweep at home against the Vanderbilt Commodores. They hadn't done that in a while against Vandy. Plus, Alabama softball also took care of business with a sweep at home against South Carolina. It wasn't enough to win the SEC regular season championship. They finished second to Oklahoma by a game, but it does set them very well. That set them up as the number 2 seed in the SEC tournament. We'll have those stories. Plus, we'll be getting your phone calls, emails, and tweets. I want to hear from you, Tider Insider Nation, because I'm by myself tonight, so please keep me company. 205-348-WVUA. That's 205-348-9882. Or you can email us there at the address on your screen. We've got some emails that came in since last week. TITV@WVUA23.com is the email address. We're going to come back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, the one, the only, Tider Insider TV. We'll be back right after this. And we're back here on TITV. I'm Gary Harris, not joined by Rodney Orr tonight, but he'll be back with us next week here on the program. All right, Alabama baseball had a big series against Vanderbilt, and they got the result that they really needed. Alabama had been struggling. They lost 7 of their last 9 going into the Vanderbilt series, but what do? They sweep the Commodores for the first time since 2009, and that was huge because Alabama is still in the hunt for a chance to host an NCAA regional. On the first game on Thursday night, Eric Hines, Bama was down 4-0 in this one, but he crushed one. A 3-run blast. This one wound up being tied 4-4 and would go to the bottom of the 9th when John Lim, the man from down under, Thunder from down under, Australia, hit the game-winning shot for the Crimson Tide. And Alabama won that first game. They took the second game on Friday and then won the third game on Saturday. They got great starting pitching in all 3 of those games. Faye, Adams, and Upchurch all got the job done. There you see the walk-off by John Lim. And, boy, I tell you what, they went nuts there. But this Alabama baseball team is playing at Troy tonight in their final midweek of the year. They lead that game. Let me check my phone here to give you the most updated score. Bama leads at 1-0 in the bottom of the second. And they go to South Carolina this weekend for their next to last series against a team, let's just be honest, South Carolina, they've struggled all year. Alabama's capable of not only winning this series this weekend, but I think of sweeping on the road. And, boy, it would be great to have a regional here in Tuscaloosa. It would be awesome if the Tide could host a regional. Anyway, they're feeling good. They got through that slump. Now coming off that 3-game sweep of a Vanderbilt team that's not what maybe Vanderbilt's been in the past, but still that's a really good team to sweep them, as I said, playing Troy tonight, and they will be at South Carolina this weekend. Let's hear from Alabama head coach Rob Vaughn now on what the Tide was able to get accomplished against Vanderbilt.
All in all, just a great weekend, and but I told the group, man, we're a long way away from being done here. Like, this is not, we haven't hit any goals we have yet. We haven't reached any of that yet. So we got to be mature enough to take these next couple days to recover and get out and have a really good week. Winning in this league is just so darn hard, and it doesn't matter where they come from, how you get them. This year's been a little bit different. We kind of reference that in here, and I think it's kind of across the league. Like, you've seen a lot more sweeps than I feel like you normally see in the league.
All right, now to softball, and Alabama did the same thing that baseball did. They got the sweep at home, Thursday, Friday, Saturday series. 3 one-run games now against South Carolina. Give South Carolina credit. They made Alabama work for it. But at the end of the day, it's about getting the result, and Alabama was able to do that. Thought the Tide might wind up with a tie with Oklahoma for the league championship. Oklahoma lost game 1 at A&M, and if they had lost 2 out of 3, Alabama would have tied for the conference championship, but they came back and won both game 2 and game 3, did Oklahoma over A&M. So Alabama finished the second. They're the number 2 seed in Lexington. The SEC softball tournament got underway today at Kentucky, and Alabama will play the Mississippi State Arkansas winner on Thursday. Now, Mississippi State had to come from behind to beat Kentucky. Kentucky lost 23 straight SEC games and had a 3-1 lead in the bottom of the 7th, but Mississippi State rallied to win that one 4-3. So Kentucky's out. Mississippi State, Arkansas play tomorrow. Then Alabama will play the winner of that game on Thursday. This is an Alabama team that still theoretically has a chance for the number 1 overall seed. Let's say that Alabama wins the SEC tournament. That means Oklahoma would not. There's a chance Alabama, I think, is looking at the 3 seed right now, but they could wind up getting the number 1 overall seed if they can win that SEC tournament. And this note today, USA Today Sports Network has named Jocelyn Brisky the pitcher of the year in the SEC, deservedly so, and Patrick Murphy the coach of the year. So Alabama softball rolling into Lexington with some momentum. Well, still to come on TITV, it looks like some big changes are coming as far as NCAA eligibility is concerned with all these players in the portal and so forth. Nate Oats has some thoughts on what could be in the future. And up next, your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, the phone number, as always, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Go ahead and light those phone calls up on the Decades Pub and Grub hotline. We want to hear from you, Tider Insider Nation, and we'll be right back. Television, I'm Gary Harris. Rodney Orr is on assignment doing a speaking engagement tonight. Well, after getting a lot of attention this past season because they decided to bring back former Alabama center and a guy who was playing in the G League, Charles Bediako, mid-season. He played in 5 games for Alabama before he was ruled ineligible. It stirred up quite a hornet's nest. But Eligibility is just one of the many issues that's on the NCAA's agenda as far as how they're going to handle college basketball and college football in the future. Player eligibility is a big part of that, and Nate Oats said last week at the Regent Tradition Pro-Am that he knows it's a tough job for the NCAA. There's a lot to work through here.
It's not easy. You know, you kind of put yourself in the NCAA's shoes. There's a lot of moving parts, and they're trying to figure it out. And that we need more consistency in the rules. I think they're trying to get there. I personally think the 5-5 makes a lot of sense, because then you don't, especially today's era where guys can make so much money. I think you're going to see, if they didn't do it and you only get 4 years to play 5, everybody's going to try to stretch that 5 all the way to the end, and then you're going to have all kinds of ambiguity, guys filing for waivers and this and that. I think just you get 5 years.
5 years, period. Shelf life. I like that too. All right, it's time to take some phone calls, and our phone line is presented by Decades Pub and Grub. A great place to eat. Timerson Square in Tuscaloosa. The Clark family makes everything from scratch in their kitchen. You got to experience this food to believe it. Also a great atmosphere. That's Decades Pub and Grub, downtown Timerson Square in Tuscaloosa. Rick and Brent is going to lead us off tonight. Hey, Rick.
Hey, how are you tonight?
Doing great, buddy.
Hey, what is the status of Allen coming back, and when's the last day that he can change his mind and come back to Alabama?
Okay, Rick. First of all, I'm getting a little nervous. I mean, I still think Amari Allen's going to come back. That's my opinion. But, of course, again, everybody's a analyst or a draft expert now. But he's getting some really good reviews. Now, the draft combine will probably tell the tale. May 27th is the last day that you can come back and pull your name out of the draft and have your college eligibility for next season. So May 27th is the date. Amari Allen is a guy who's going to play in the NBA. It's just a question of when. I hope he will take the LeBaron Philon route. LeBaron Philon last year at this time, it looked like he was probably going to go to the draft. He came back at the last second and had a huge year and really upped his draft stock. Plus, he made a lot of NIL money. So Amari Allen, Rick, kind of stands to do the same thing. So, again, that deadline to pull your name out of the draft is May 27th. My feeling right now is that Amari Allen is going to be part of the Alabama basketball team for this upcoming season, but only time will tell. All right, let's get to our email question of the day, and it is brought to you by KDM Service Corporation. When it comes to heating and air conditioning, KDM Service Corporation serves your family like our family. Our email question of the day is from Wayne in Winfield. Is the roster set for Bama basketball next season? Not quite. Again, we're waiting to see what happens with Amari Allen. And I think, too, Rick, we're obviously waiting to see what happens with Aiden Holloway. Or I should say, Wayne. It's a wait and see with Allen and with Holloway. If Holloway is cleared of his legal issues, I expect him to be a part of this team next season. I still think Alabama and Nate Oats and Preston Murphy are going to add a point guard. Holloway can play the point, but last year Philon did most of that responsibility. I don't think he's a full-time point guard. I think Alabama needs another point guard, Wayne. So I think regardless of what happens with Holloway, they're going to add a point at some point. But we are waiting to see with Allen in the draft and Holloway with his legal issues. All right, still to come on Tider Insider Television, Alabama Sports keeps landing top prospects across the board. Gymnastics is no exception. We'll have news on the top gymnast in the country who flipped from Auburn to Alabama. That ought to excite you even more. And more of your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, that phone number and phone lines are open right now in the Decades Pub and Grub hotline at 205-348-9882. Go ahead and give us a call. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide, Tider Insider TV. Some huge gymnastic news, which should excite Alabama fans. The Crimson Tide has landed a commit from the top gymnast in the 2027 recruiting cycle, Eliza Veta Grebenkova. Now, she was formerly committed to the Auburn Tigers. Makes it even sweeter for Bama fans, but she flipped her commitment yesterday to the Tide. Grebenkova was born in Moscow, Russia, but she currently lives in Texas and attends Spring Hill High School. She is what you would call a difference maker. And so this is a huge pickup for Alabama Gymnastics. And that coaching staff there with the Crimson Tide. Welcome back into TITV. I'm Gary Harris, and we are going to take an email question. Phone lines are open, by the way, 205-348-9882. Let's get to our email question, and this is going to be from Tawana in Tuscaloosa. How do y'all believe Pauline Love will do at Alabama? Of course, she's the new women's basketball coach. I have to say, honestly, I think the jury is out. I mean, she's never been a head coach at any level. So I can't really answer that, but I can tell you this, Tawana, I think she's going to recruit very well. She's had an outstanding effort so far in the portal. So I think Alabama's going to have some talented players next year. And I think long-term, that's what it's all about, right? It's player acquisition. I think that, you know, she's put together a good staff. She was at Alabama for a year before going to Oklahoma, so she's familiar with the program, with Tuscaloosa, with the university. So I think she'll do a good job. As to how well she does, only time will tell. But I do think she's going to be able to get good players in here, and that's what it's all about. All right, we're going to get one more email real quickly, and let's get to it real quick. If Patrick Murphy wins the national championship, will he retire? That's from Sarah in Vestavia. Listen, I think that's a fair question. I don't think so. I think he just enjoys what he does too much. But if you were going to go out, that would be the way to do it, right, on a national title. All right, thanks for the phone calls and emails. We're going to come back and wrap up this edition of TITV right after this. Thank you for tuning into this edition of Tider Insider Television presented by Visit Tuscaloosa. Don't forget, if you missed any of the program, you can catch a replay tonight at 10:30 or find it anytime online at WVOA23.com. All right, we're going to leave you with action from the Regents Tradition Pro-Am last week as Bama was well represented. Head football coach DeBoer, head men's basketball coach Nate Oats, and former Crimson Tide head coach, the GOAT, Nick Saban, all were in action showing off their golf swings. All right, for Rodney Orr, who'll be back with us next week, I'm Gary Harris. Thanks for watching this edition of Tider Insider Television. Have a great evening, everybody.